What if you want to influence the analysis that the Hurst Cycles indicator is performing for you? The Hurst Cycles indicator is a very powerful indicator in that it performs a very good Hurst Cycles analysis. Learning how to perform a Hurst Cycles analysis, I can tell you, is something that takes many years. And so having the Hurst Cycles indicator do it for you is obviously a great benefit. But perhaps you are a Hurst Cycles expert and you've been doing Hurst Cycles analysis yourself for many years, and you want to get stuck in there and you want to bend the will of the Hurst Cycles indicator closer to what you think is happening in the markets. Is it possible? Can you change what the indicator is doing for you in terms of the analysis that it has performed? Yes, it is possible. However, I should warn you that you need to be a little careful in doing this. A Hurst Cycles analysis is a very complex thing. It is a magnificent puzzle with many different pieces that need to fit together to do with all the interlocking of the different cycles and how they all work together. And influencing the analysis, which is a nice way of saying that you are telling the indicator what to do, is really a matter of messing with what the indicator has done and has calculated. And you could inadvertently produce unresolvable situations. If you aren't experienced at performing a Hurst Cycles analysis yourself, you might find that a little difficult to understand. But if one piece of the puzzle is out of place and doesn't fit in with all the other pieces of the puzzle, then what ends up happening is that the puzzle doesn't really work. It can't be completed. And so you have to be careful about messing with the analysis that the indicator has performed, because you might inadvertently produce a situation where the indicator cannot resolve the analysis. However, with that caveat out of the way, let's take a look at how we can influence the analysis and tell this indicator what is actually going on in the markets. The first thing that you can do when influencing the analysis is that you can help the indicator to confirm a peak or a trough that it has been expecting. So we have a very good example of that over here. This is the dollar to the Canadian dollar, the United States dollar to the Canadian dollar, and you can see we have a circle for the one-day cycle peak over here. And sure enough, we have a peak that formed in the market. This is a 1-minute chart. We have a peak that formed in the market just a few minutes after that. Now the indicator is doing the sensible thing, and it's not positioning the peak of that one-day cycle there just yet, because you can see the whiskers of the one-day cycle are still extending into the future. And it is not impossible that, although that looks like a very good, strong peak, it's not impossible that the market is going to carry on higher into the next 5-hour cycle or white cycle peak, and that will turn out to be the peak of the one-day cycle. That is why the indicator hasn't confirmed that peak yet. But let's assume, for the sake of this demonstration, that you want to tell the indicator that that is the one-day cycle peak. I'm not recommending this because I do believe it's important to keep a bit of an open mind and not force the indicator into identifying peaks or troughs when it is really very premature. But let me show you how you can do that. It's actually really simple. We will double click on that circle. You can see how the circle has now been selected. Now that it has been selected, we simply drag it onto that stack of diamonds and then we drop it. Can you see what happened? The indicator, in a split second, was bowed to your will and has placed the one-day cycle peak at that position over there. It has also, of course, adjusted the wavelength of the one-day cycle because it has a new peak for that one-day cycle, and it has it right over there. You can see how easy it is to do this. Now let me show you another way in which you can influence the analysis of the indicator, and that is by, in fact, doing the reverse of what we have just done. Let's assume that the indicator has confirmed the position of that one-day cycle peak over there. And we're looking at that peak and we're saying, I don't think that peak should be confirmed. The indicator has been premature in placing that peak there. I would rather see the circle and whiskers to see what the range of time that peak could be expected is. Because, for instance, I'm worried that the market is going to come up and form a higher peak. Is that possible? So, how do we tell the indicator to remove that peak, or to unconfirm it, if you like? It's again a very simple process. We double click on that diamond for the 1-day cycle peak. You can see that that diamond has now been selected. I then drag that diamond off to the right hand edge of the chart. Now you must be careful, because if I drop this diamond within the price action, then the indicator is going to place the peak where I drop the diamond. We don't want it to do that. What we want it to do is to clear it, to get rid of it. So I'm going to drop it beyond the price action. And there we go. In an instant, the indicator reads your mind and realizes that you don't want that 1-day cycle peak to be confirmed over there. And so it removes it. And of course, in its place, we see the circle and whiskers for the 1-day cycle peak. Now you can play around and you can have fun with this, and you can influence the analysis, and you can refine the analysis if necessary. Let's have a look at what's happening at the foot of your chart. We can see here that we have 2 circles and whiskers for the white intraday cycle. One of them is over here, and one of them is over here. Now we can look at those circles and whiskers, and we can say, obviously, with our advanced human brains, we can see that this over here should be a trough of the 5-hour cycle, the white cycle, and this over here is another trough of the 5-hour cycle. So why hasn't the indicator done that? Why hasn't it confirmed that? Well, let me not go into all the complexities, but let me explain some of the reasoning here. There are 2 separate situations that are happening. The first one is for this circle and whiskers over here. Why hasn't the indicator confirmed this obvious trough here as the 5-hour cycle? The reason for that is because there are 3 troughs here that are all fairly equal in magnitude, if you like. And so the indicator doesn't want to place that trough there yet. The danger with placing a trough or a peak prematurely is that you start working with cycle information that is not actually accurate. So you have to be careful of confirming troughs or peaks prematurely. And that's why the indicator hasn't placed that trough there yet. It probably will do that soon, but of course we can tell the indicator to place that trough there, which I will demonstrate in a moment. Now this circle and whiskers over here is a slightly different situation, because the range of time that that trough could have been expected extends a little bit into the future. And so although we can see a very clear prominent trough over here, and we're probably saying to ourselves, that is obviously the trough of the 5-hour cycle, and in fact it was only a few minutes after that circle, because there's the circle, and just a few minutes later that trough formed. That's obviously the 5-hour cycle trough. Again, you have to be careful of confirming those troughs prematurely, and so the indicator isn't going to confirm it yet. It might do soon, but it is possible that the market's going to suddenly move down fairly quickly with the same speed that it moved up and form another trough over here, in which case that will of course be the 5-hour cycle trough. So now that you understand why the indicator isn't confirming those troughs, it's not actually an error on behalf of the indicator, let me show you how you can confirm the placements of these troughs. One reason why you might want to do that is by confirming the position of a trough, you are, of course, helping to refine the current wavelength of the cycle, and therefore making your analysis more accurate. Your FLDs will be more accurate, your VTLs will be more accurate, but the downside is that if you confirm a trough that is not legitimately a trough of that particular cycle, then you are not going to be enhancing your cycle information, you are in fact going to be degrading it. Let me show you how you do that. It's very simple as demonstrated. You double click on that white circle and you can either drag it to the trough in price, or I find it better to drag it to the little stack of diamonds that is under there, and we drop it there. And as you can see, that has now been confirmed as a trough of the white cycle. Having confirmed that as a trough of the white cycle, you can see that the indicator now has a new wavelength for that white cycle, and it has slightly adjusted the position of this nest of lows over here, or not the nest of lows specifically, but the circle and whiskers for the white cycle. We now have a neater nest of lows, and it is looking more and more apparent that that is the trough of the white cycle. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, your focus should really be on those circles and whiskers and not on the diamonds. And so influencing the analysis by helping the indicator to confirm the positions of troughs and peaks might provide you with more accurate cycle information, and it provides you with a neater chart, fewer circles and whiskers, and more diamonds. But you must be very careful of falling into the trap of overworking your analysis and forcing your analysis into a situation whereby your analysis is not as accurate as it could be. Hurst Cycles analysis is a very complex process, and it is important to keep it fairly dynamic. Don't become obsessed by confirming those troughs as soon as you see them. You can trade them on the basis of the circles and whiskers, but I believe it is better to let the Hurst Cycles indicator confirm them when it is ready to do so. One final point about influencing the analysis that the indicator has performed is that the indicator will, of course, refresh its analysis, which it does on average every 10 minutes. If in the process of refreshing its analysis it finds that it has an incongruency in its analysis, it has something that doesn't make sense, a very big trough or peak that has been violated by price, in other words, prices has since moved lower or higher, then it will refresh the analysis, and I regret it will not honor the fact that you might have confirmed that particular trough or peak. The reason for this is that if the indicator is constantly honoring the troughs and peaks that you have confirmed, you are soon going to find yourself with an analysis situation which doesn't make sense because of a trough or a peak that you confirmed perhaps several days ago, which is still being honored and is being kept there in the analysis, but it is causing some kind of incongruency. And so you might find that you confirm a peak or a trough, and then sometime later the indicator removes that peak or trough. Please don't be insulted. The indicator is doing its best to provide you with the best possible Hurst Cycles analysis. On the other hand, if your confirmation of a trough or a peak is a valid one, then of course the indicator will have no need to remove it and provide you with a different alternative.